Every story we tell is a journey, a thrilling adventure that will keep you hooked from start to finish. Before we begin, let us know where you're watching from. We love seeing our community come together from all around the world. And don't forget, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a story. Tomorrow, we have a special story just for you. Trust us, you won't want to miss it. See you on the next adventure. The Royal Guard who, almost, broke character, unbelievable moment. It was a bright afternoon at Buckingham Palace, with tourists from all over the world gathered in front of the grand gates. Cameras clicked, voices buzzed with excitement, and all eyes were on the iconic Royal Guards, standing in their traditional red uniforms and tall bearskin hats. Among the crowd was Mark, an American tourist with a mischievous grin on his face. Mark had heard all about the unbreakable discipline of the Royal Guards. Stories of how they never react, no matter what happens around them, fascinated him. Seriously? They don't even blink? He muttered to himself. That's when he got an idea. A challenge. Mark wasn't one to back down from a good challenge, and today, he had set his sights on making a Royal Guard react. He nudged his friend beside him and whispered, "Watch this." Taking a deep breath, he stepped forward, just close enough to be within speaking distance of the soldier, but not too close to break any rules. The guard stood like a statue, his eyes locked straight ahead, rifle firmly in place. Mark smirked, then said loudly, "Hey mate, do you know why England isn't great at soccer anymore? Because you guys just stand around like this all day." As soon as the joke landed, the crowd erupted in laughter. A few tourists covered their mouths, giggling. Some turned to their friends, exchanging amused glances. A group of teenagers nearby pulled out their phones, eager to capture what they hoped would be a rare reaction. But the Royal Guard? Nothing. Not a twitch. Not a blink. Not the slightest movement. He remained as solid and unshakable as ever. Mark raised his eyebrows, pretending to be shocked. "Wow. Tough crowd," he joked, earning another wave of chuckles from the audience. Still, the guard didn't budge. Mark folded his arms, tapping his chin dramatically. "All right," he said, turning back to the crowd, "I guess I'll have to step up my game." The crowd murmured in anticipation as Mark prepared for round 2 of his challenge. Little did he know, he was about to experience something no one expected. Mark had expected some kind of reaction, even the smallest twitch of an eyebrow, a slight shift in posture, anything. But no. The Royal Guard stood firm, his expression unchanging, his gaze locked straight ahead, as if Mark's joke had never even reached his ears. The crowd, however, reacted instantly. Laughter rippled through the tourists, some shaking their heads in amusement, others covering their mouths to keep from laughing too loudly. A few people pulled out their phones to record the moment, hoping to capture what they thought would be a legendary reaction from the guard. One man in the crowd, chuckling, leaned over to his wife. "I've seen people try everything to get them to react, but this guy is determined." Mark grinned, clearly enjoying himself. He turned to the spectators and shrugged dramatically. "Wow. I guess British humor is a little different, huh?" More laughter erupted, but once again, the Royal Guard remained completely still. Not a smirk. Not a blink. Not even a shift in his weight. Mark exhaled, pretending to wipe sweat from his forehead. "All right," he said, rubbing his hands together. "Time for round 2." He took a step closer, being careful not to cross any lines that would break palace security rules. Then, he delivered his second joke, this time, an even riskier one. Why don't royal guards ever get invited to parties? Because they just stand around and act all stiff the whole time. This time, the reaction was even bigger. The crowd burst into loud laughter, some tourists practically doubling over. Even a security officer standing at a distance smirked slightly before quickly regaining his serious expression. A teenage girl, recording on her phone, whispered excitedly, "Oh my God! If the guard reacts to this video is going viral." Mark, fueled by the audience's energy, turned back toward the guard, watching him closely. The air felt electric with anticipation. Would this be the moment? Would the royal guard finally break character? Would Mark become the first tourist to crack their legendary discipline? He stared at the guard's face, searching for any sign of movement. And then, nothing. The soldier remained as still as a statue. Mark staggered backward in mock defeat, throwing his hands in the air. "Unbelievable. The man has nerves of steel," he declared, making the crowd burst into even more laughter. But just as Mark was about to give up, something unexpected happened. Something so subtle, yet so shocking, that the entire crowd went silent. Mark stood there, hands on his hips, staring at the royal guard's completely unshakable expression. The joke had landed perfectly, the crowd loved it. People were still chuckling, shaking their heads at how determined he was. But the guard? Nothing. No reaction. No movement. Not even the smallest flicker of amusement in his eyes. Mark sighed dramatically, turning to face the audience. "All right, folks. Clearly, we have a professional here." A few people clapped in agreement, appreciating the guard's discipline. But Mark wasn't done yet. He wasn't leaving without one final attempt. He took a deep breath, squared his shoulders, and delivered his best joke yet. "Okay, last one. Why did the royal guard refuse to play hide-and-seek?" The crowd leaned in. Mark paused for dramatic effect, then grinned. "Because good luck hiding when you're dressed like a giant tomato with a furry hat." The crowd exploded into laughter. People were clapping, wiping tears from their eyes, and some were even doubling over from how ridiculous the joke was. A couple of tourists repeated the punchline to each other, laughing even harder the second time. Even Mark's own friend was struggling to keep a straight face, shaking his head and whispering, "Dude, you're insane." Mark turned back to the guard, eyes locked onto his face, searching for even the smallest reaction. The air felt tense with anticipation. Would this be the moment? Would Mark become the tourist who finally made a royal guard break? He stared at the soldier, waiting, holding his breath. 1 second passed. Then 2. Nothing. The royal guard remained perfectly still, eyes fixed ahead, his posture rigid. Mark groaned, throwing his hands in the air. "All right, I give up. This man is a machine." The crowd erupted again, clapping for both Mark's effort and the guard's legendary self-control. And then, something happened. It was so fast, so subtle, that most people missed it entirely. But Mark? Mark saw it. A single, tiny flicker of movement. The guard's right eye, just for a fraction of a second, closed in a quick wink. Mark's jaw dropped. For a moment, he thought he had imagined it. But no, he was sure of it. The royal guard had just winked at him. And Mark? Mark had no idea what to do next. For a split second, Mark's brain refused to process what had just happened. Did he imagine it? Did the royal guard, a soldier known for unyielding discipline and unshakable posture, actually just wink at him? Mark's mouth hung open, his entire body frozen in shock. The laughter from the crowd had barely died down, but a few people standing close by noticed the change in his expression. "What happened?" someone whispered. Mark's friend nudged him. "Dude, what's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost." Slowly, Mark turned back to face the guard. The soldier stood exactly as he had before. Rigid. Still. Unmoved. It was as if nothing had happened. But Mark knew. He knew what he saw. His brain replayed the moment over and over, the sharp, disciplined eyes of the soldier, and then, just for a fraction of a second, one eye had closed. It was the quickest, smallest gesture. But it was deliberate. A reaction. A silent acknowledgement. A hidden message between a disciplined soldier and a man who had spent the last 10 minutes trying to break his composure. Mark whipped around to the crowd, eyes wide. "Did anyone else see that?" he blurted out. A few tourists looked confused, shaking their heads. "No, what? What happened?" But one person, a woman holding her phone, gasped. "Wait," she said, frantically zooming in on her video recording. "I think I caught something." The crowd huddled around, eagerly looking at her screen. And there it was, the tiniest flicker of movement. The guard's right eye, closing for just a heartbeat before returning to its rigid stare. The crowd went silent for a moment, processing what they had just witnessed. Then, an explosion of gasps and cheers. "He did it," someone shouted. The guard winked. "That's insane. I can't believe it." Mark ran both hands through his hair, still in shock. He turned back toward the guard, staring at him in awe. The soldier's face was as unreadable as ever, his posture locked in its perfect stance. But now, Mark knew the truth. This wasn't just any soldier. This was a man who understood humor, understood timing, and, above all, understood discipline at a whole new level. And in that moment, Mark realized something else. He didn't win the challenge. The Royal Guard had just won. For a few long seconds, the energy in the crowd was electric. People whispered excitedly, replaying the moment on their phones, zooming in to see if they had truly witnessed the impossible, a Royal Guard breaking his legendary composure. Mark, still standing in front of the soldier, felt his heart pounding in his chest. This was unreal. The one thing everyone said was impossible had just happened. He had spent the last 10 minutes throwing his best jokes, trying everything he could to get even the smallest reaction, and when he least expected it, the guard had outplayed him. A tiny, almost imperceptible wink. Just enough for Mark to see. But subtle enough that the guard could pretend it never happened. Mark let out a slow breath, shaking his head in admiration. He took a step back, then, in a dramatic gesture, bowed deeply to the guard as if conceding defeat. The crowd erupted in laughter and applause. "He got you, man," someone shouted. "That was legendary," another tourist added. Mark straightened up, still grinning. "I respect that," he said, looking directly at the guard. And though the soldier did not respond, Mark swore, for just a fraction of a second, He saw the slightest flicker of amusement in the guard's eyes. The crowd, still buzzing with excitement, began to disperse, some shaking their heads in disbelief, others still replaying their recordings. One teenage boy turned to his friend. "Dude, this is totally going viral." A few steps away, Mark's friend clapped him on the back. "I can't believe you actually got a reaction." Mark exhaled, rubbing his forehead. "I didn't just get a reaction, man. I got played." His friend laughed. "Well, at least now you have a story to tell." Mark looked back at the royal guard one last time. The soldier remained still, unshaken, just as he had from the beginning. But Mark knew better now. This wasn't just about standing still or keeping a straight face. It was about control. The royal guard had given him just enough to keep the legend alive, without ever actually breaking his discipline. Mark smirked. Respect. And with that, he turned and walked away, knowing he had just experienced one of the rarest, most legendary moments at Buckingham Palace. This was one of the rarest moments ever caught on camera at Buckingham Palace. Do you think the royal guard winked on purpose? Or was it just a trick of the light? Let us know in the comments below. And if you loved this moment, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more legendary real-life stories like this.